with fear. Freedom we all hold dear now is at stake. Humble your heart to God, safe from the chastening rod. Seek the way pilgrims trod, Christians away. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon.
I appreciate so much you joining us. I thank you if you stay with us today, and particularly the people who live in Nashville. You're going to enjoy this because you're going to get some information, because I'm going to ask some questions today of our guest because you have the same questions. And our guest today is Tasha French Lemley. Did I say that right?
That's right. You got it.
It was Tasha French until just recently.
Yes.
And you added Mr. Lemley to this.
I did.
That's right. That's
yep.
right. How's married life working out for you?
It's good so far. We're 4 months in, so I think we're doing pretty good.
Well, you need to send him over to see me. I can tell him right quick how to have a happy marriage.
Well,
It'll take
good.
me long.
I'll do that.
I got this thing figured out.
Well, good.
I've been doing it a long time. I got it figured out.
How long?
Now, see, you got me in trouble. I think I'm at 47 years.
Okay.
I think that's right.
Well, good.
And they've been good 47 years.
Good.
It passes quicker, let me tell you. It passes quicker than you think it's going to.
Okay.
Do I call you Tasha?
Yes.
Okay. You are the creator, is that right?
That's
or the
right.
founder? Founder. This is great. I love this. You've seen people around town passing out newspapers. They're out there and they got a newspaper and they're holding up the contributor. This is the brainchild. Tasha is the brainchild to the contributor, and I want to find out about this because this is a good idea. Where did you come up with such an idea?
Well, I have a background in photojournalism and graphic design.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school. I did about half my school at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, and then finished up my education at ACU, Abilene Christian University, out in Abilene, Texas.
Love Abilene.
Yes.
Beautiful territory out
It's
there.
a good place.
That's where I was supposed to have been born, but the Lord messed up and sent me here. That's great. But I like Nashville.
Yeah.
So how long have you been in Nashville?
I've been about 10 years. So people ask if I'm from here, and I guess I am now. I don't know where that year is that all of a sudden you're from the place you're in.
Well,
so.
you can always. I left my phone here. I'm gonna have my phone off. Betsy, will you pick up my phone? So I'll get a phone call here. I was supposed to give that to your husband, who's running the control booth. Well, I'm sorry for the interruption, but that thing's gonna light up here in just a second. So you went to school at Abilene.
Yeah. So I finished.
I'm not going to ask you how old are you, but you went to school at Abilene. When did you come up with the idea? And came to Nashville straight out of Abilene?
Stayed in Abilene a couple of years and then moved on to Nashville. And moved to Nashville in 2002 and had a degree in photojournalism. Didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, was kind of just trying to find my way. I thought I was going to move here, thought I was going to get a good graphic design job. I wanted to be an artist. I thought, I'm going to get there, I'm going to make $30,000 a year, I'm going to have it made. And so I applied to 21 different places. This is back in 2002. Applied to 21 different places, got 14 interviews, did really well, but the only place that would hire me was Kinko's. And this is downtown 3rd and Broadway.
Right.
And
it's a busy store.
It was a busy store. It was good. It was a good experience, but I did not have a good spirit about it. I was grumpy. I didn't know what I had done wrong, that I couldn't get the job I wanted. I didn't want to be working there. But I was just there for about one summer, and in that time, if you're familiar with that location, you park right behind the store itself in downtown Nashville. There's not much parking, but there's a little.
I don't go down there. I send people down there, but I don't go down there. I try to push it off on somebody else.
That's right. Make someone else do it. And so I would park behind the store every day and walk right around the corner to where I worked. And there was a homeless gentleman that sat on the bench right there at 3rd and Broadway, and I saw him every day. And I had never really thought about homeless people one way or the other. I knew homeless people existed, of course, but I'd never really talked to someone who had experienced homelessness. And I didn't wish him any ill will, of course, but I just didn't think about homeless people much at all. And then one day, I was driving to work, and I got some insight. I thought, I'm going to do something really radical. I'm going to introduce myself. And I was scared to death. I remember that day gripping the steering wheel.
Are you serious?
And yeah, I remember staring at my hands.
You're
I guess
a
I
good person, aren't you?
should have been staring at the road. So I'm staring at my hands, and I thought, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to do it. And my heart was racing. And so I get there, and he'd never addressed me before. We'd never talked to each other. And I realized if he were a, quote, normal person, we would have introduced ourselves to each other long ago. If I saw you in the same line waiting for coffee every day, I'd say, what's your name? I see you every day. So that's how I felt about this man, but I was very scared. And so that day I parked, I walked over to him, and I stuck out my hand, and I said, "Hi, I'm Tasha." And he looked up kind of startled. I think I scared him as much as he scared me. And he said, "Hi, my name is Don." And he shook my hand, and it was the stickiest, puffiest, hottest hand I'd ever shaken. And after that point, I just got inspired by him. I would think of different things to ask Don every day. Once I asked him, what do you pray for? You know, I just thought, what in the world does someone like him pray for? And he said, I pray for somewhere to sleep every day where the cops won't bother me. And so it was quite an experience. And I then became inspired to photograph him. Again, I have a degree in photojournalism, but I had not been photographing really since I'd been in Nashville. And but I got inspired to photograph him, and I asked him one day, "Don, can I photograph you?" And he was really excited. He was a street musician. So he drew up something kind of like this studio, how we were going to have lights and cameras, and no, it was just me and a drizzly day and a little Nikon. You know, that was it. And so I photographed Don, got the prints developed, printed them out at Kinko's, and gave him some of those. This is a long roundabout way of telling you how I got this idea.
That's all right. That's what I wanted. You're doing good. You're doing good. We got time.
Yeah.
Just keep talking. This is great. It's great.
So we are getting there. So I gave him some pictures of himself, and then that was pretty much that for the moment. One day again, I was working at Kinko's, sitting there, and a young man walked in, and he had my pictures of Don, and he walked up to the counter, and he said, "Did you do this?" And I'm scared to death. I'm scared a lot in my stories. And I said, "Yeah." And I thought I was in trouble. And he said, "Would you like to do more?" And I said, "Absolutely." And this guy, his name is Lee. And at the time, he was an outreach worker for MDHA. And for people who might not know, an outreach worker is typically someone who can be the first point of contact between someone living on the streets and all the great services available in Nashville to that person. Those services can be hard to navigate for someone who has a home and a phone, but for someone living on the streets, living from day to day, they can be incredibly difficult services to navigate. So an outreach worker that I met is someone who meets someone like Don, starts building a friendship, building some trust, and then finds out what their needs are. So I started walking with Lee, just on his rounds as he would talk with individuals. And when I would get inspired or I'd feel like the conversation was going well, I'd say, "Do you mind if I take your picture?" And a lot of times the answer was yes. So I'd pull out my camera and just ended up with some good portraits of people who were homeless. Ended up over from 2003 to about 2007, off and on, continuing to do that work, photographing people on the streets. Eventually started interviewing them, doing some audio interviews just about their lives, just hearing stories about their childhood or any experience they wanted to talk about, any wisdom that they had. So just expanded that project. So now I've got this body of work, photographs and interviews of homeless people. What in the world? What am I going to do with that? I don't know. I've got a blog. That's about it. But through my interest in homelessness and then my new passion for my new friends and neighbors that I had met, I read a book called Grand Central Winter, and that is a book by a man named Lee Stringer. And Lee was homeless in New York for about 12 years and addicted to crack cocaine. He lived in the subway station at Grand Central. And I read this book and I immediately fell in love with him. Well, part of Lee's story is that at one point he becomes the editor of a street newspaper in New York City. And so that was my introduction to street newspaper. And then I realized, well, then I have seen what appears to be homeless people or impoverished people selling a newspaper in cities that I'd visited. And so in 2007, I thought, I was kind of looking for my next thing. I was in a life transition and thought, well, Nashville needs a street newspaper. Maybe that'd be a fun project. And I shuffled that away, didn't think about it for a couple months, and that kept nagging at me. And I thought, someone needs to do that. Somebody needs to start a street newspaper here. And then one day I realized, I guess that's you. Not you, but me.
I got it.
I guess that's Lytle. Lytle needs to start a street newspaper. No, I guess that's you, meaning me. That I had I had the background in photojournalism, graphic design.
You're qualified.
At that point,
now you got relationships.
Yeah, I have the relationships. You've got it. I know the outreach workers. I know people who have experienced homelessness. And at this point, I've long left Kinko's, and so I'm a freelance graphic designer. So the actual printing of the paper was not intimidating to me, and that's a hard step for a lot of people. So we launched our first issue almost 5 years ago to the day. So November 14th will be the 5th year anniversary of when we gave our first paper out to our first crew of vendors. And so that's how I got the idea. That's my long way of telling
Where'd
you
you
that.
come up with the vendor idea?
Okay.
Because you'd seen it in New York and other cities?
Yes, New York and other cities. It's a pretty standard model that that we lean on our First Amendment rights of freedom of speech and freedom of the press to be able to sell printed material on the public right-of-way. And so in some ways, you know...
I didn't know that'd be a problem.
Yeah, so in some ways
Would it be a
might...
problem?
It could be a problem.
Did you have to fight some opposition?
We've had to fight a little bit of opposition along the way, but we've done quite well. Davidson County has been amazing to us, and Nashville has been great, and Middle Tennessee as a whole
It's
has
an
been
answer to the
wonderful.
panhandler.
In some ways it is, yeah. So the newspaper model works really well because it's a protected form of speech by our government, and so that's really great. Sometimes people contact me.
So we did it in the 40s,
That's
the 50s?
right. That's right. I didn't make it up. We had the
That's
paper
right.
Kids, extra, read all about it.
Yes,
So
yes, that was the way of life.
It's an American tradition that's really carried on, and so let's see. So yes. Oh, so the vendor model, that is a very typical model among street newspapers. All along the way, I've wanted to look to the people who have done it longer than me and say, what's the best way to do this? How do you do it? And so I looked to DC's paper when I started looking towards Seattle, Portland, some of these guys that have done it a lot longer than us. And how do you do this? And so that's where the vendor model came from.
I hear a lot about Seattle and Portland. Do they have effective homeless ministries in those cities, or just a lot of homeless people out there? And why is there many homeless people out there? I don't understand.
Right, you know, and I don't know exactly a lot about it. We just hired a girl actually to be our new vendor support coordinator. She's from Portland, and so I know they've got some amazing services out there. I think that it seems, this is just you know, not an expert, but the layman's terms. I think that anywhere that you've got a coast, I think can be a real draw for people to really to plant.
Yeah, and it's warm year round.
Yeah, it can be warm year round, and it seems to be a good place. Coastal living seems to be a good place to be, especially if you need to live outdoors.
The idea now, do you have the first dollar that you sold on the street paper? Did you keep the dollar?
Okay, that's kind of a funny story, and no one's actually ever asked me that. The first sale was accidental. And it was me.
Okay.
So that is the only paper.
You were the vendor.
Yes, and okay, so
Who
that
else?
there's no
That's storybook
so
right
that
there.
there's no confusion. All of our vendors have experienced homelessness. None of us have gone out there as staff. I've been curious at points. What if I dressed up, you know, wore an apron or a T-shirt, went out and tried to sell? That's really important to me that everyone understands. We don't do that. You know, volunteers don't do that. Everyone who sells our paper has experienced homelessness.
My 10-year-old granddaughter asked that question.
Yeah,
Asked
can
me,
I?
Is this a homeless person here? And I said, baby, they're probably panhandling and hustling. I just blowed it off, you know. So everybody that sells
has experienced homelessness.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yes,
That's good to know.
And so, but okay, so this one exception is the first time we had just picked up our papers, the very first issue.
How many did you print? How many did you print?
Okay, we printed way too many at first. We printed 5,000.
Okay.
So it was way too many. I was advised that was too many, but I was excited. So we printed 5,000.
You're the person of vision.
That's right. Yeah. So I had my little stack of papers. I was excited. I was going to share it with friends and family. And I was with my husband, and we walked into Dunn Brothers Coffee Shop downtown. And I had these papers, and we were in line to get coffee. And the man in front of us said, "What is that?" And it was the day we picked it up from the press. And I said, "Well, I just started this newspaper. It's going to be sold." And he said, "Well, I want one of those. How much is it?" And I said, $1. So some guy out there, maybe he'll see our program, he'll realize that Dunn Brothers, probably on or about November 14th, 2007, he bought the first paper from me. But I don't sell the paper because I've been blessed. I've not experienced homelessness, so I don't qualify to be a vendor.
How do you go through the screening process? Now, let me ask you this question. I don't want to forget this. I asked my secretary to go out the other day because I bought an ad for our thrift store in the Contributor. That's the name of the paper, the Contributor.
Yes, that's right.
We need to figure out where you come up with that. Now, we got a lot to talk about. So I sent her out to get a Contributor.
Yeah.
And so she went and looked and looked and looked, and she couldn't find. She found people selling Tennesseans that they're taking out of the machine, I guess, I don't know, and they're signing other stuff. And so how are you protecting your paper so that a consumer comes by that wants to help the Contributor, wants to help your organization, doesn't get panhandled by buying some newspaper, a week-old Tennessean? How do you, is it the name, is it the ID badge?
Yes, the most important thing to look for, the only thing we require our vendors to wear is a large laminated yellow tag. for about the first month that they sell with us, they have a temporary one. It'll also be yellow, but most of the time you're going to see this permanent badge that's about yay big and has a card in the middle, a plastic card that is white with their face on it and their name. That is the most important thing to look for.
Does temporary
look for
not
the
have their
badge.
face on it?
The temporary does not. It just has their name written on it. But that's so, because that badge is a badge of honor and it's a badge of permanence. And so we want people to try it out, see if they like it, see if they work with our program before we give them that legitimacy of the big laminated one. So look for that badge. That's the most important thing. If you ever have an amazing experience with a vendor or ever have a negative experience with someone you suspect may be a vendor, look at that tag. See if you can glance real quick and get a name for us, because that's the thing you're going to be able to do to help us the most.
Well, I've got my granddaughter wants to buy the same paper from everybody in town. She had her way. We wouldn't pass anybody.
That's
We would
sweet.
give out $100 a day. She wants to do it. But I have my vendor that I deal with out close to where I live. And the guy's got a great spirit, and he's not pushy. You know,
Good.
and I've noticed your vendors are not pushy. They conduct themselves as good as anybody. I'd be more pushy than they are, probably.
I probably
And
would
so-
too.
and, but they do it well.
Well,
and,
good.
and they're not. They don't impose themselves on you. They just give you the give you
Right,
the opportunity.
right.
And how long a shift do they work? Is it up to them?
It's totally up to them. Where they work and what hours they work are totally up to them. So I like to say that this is a flexible source of income for someone who needs that flexibility at this point in their lives. They go through a training process with us. I'll tell you just a little bit about that. We used to have a much more flexible training process. If you walked in and you wanted to sell, I would ask you about your experience with homelessness. We would talk a little. I would start you out with 15 free papers,
Okay.
and you would go out and start selling. But now our process has a couple more steps to do. Now, if you want to sell the paper, you have to come to our office in person, sign up for a time to meet with our director of vending, Tom. And then you're going to have to come back on another day to meet with Tom. Now that interview is just about 10 or 15 minutes. He gets to know you, talks about what your struggles have been, talks about your experience with homelessness, maybe your addictions, things like that. And then he will invite you back. You have to come back a third time for about a 3-hour training. And that's where we go over our code of conduct, different laws that you need to be aware of. It's kind of an intensive 3-hour process where then you learn the ins and outs of the program. At that point, then, you leave with 15 free papers.
Now, what's his name?
His name is Tom, our
Tom.
director of vending.
I need to interview Tom.
Yes,
Tom,
you need to
Tom
interview
can give
Tom.
me some real insight on
He
it.
will.
He has got every con artist in the world that's come to him.
Yes.
And he can see through that.
And he's also a founder. So he is definitely a great person to talk to. If you have any complaints, call Tom.
Tom, take care.
So, or any compliments, definitely call Tom. And so then we do start you out at that point with 15 free papers. Now, when you go out and sell, those papers are yours. That income is yours. You go out and sell those for $1 each plus any tips. Don't ask for tips. But if someone gives you a $5 and says keep the change, that's your money to keep. And so that is their money to keep. The 15 free papers, go out and sell them for $1 plus tips. They keep that income. What they do with that income is their business.
That's their money.
That's their money. And what
When
we
they come back to get the next load,
yes,
what's it
when
cost
they
them?
come back to get the next load, 25 cents each. So from
25
then on,
cents each.
there are some other
75 cents.
opportunities
That's
to.
pretty good markup. They're doing
There
all right.
is. There's some good opportunities to earn some free papers along the way, but for the most part, the model is 25 cents up front. You go out and sell it for $1 plus tips. You keep that money. And so I think that's something that customers have not understood. That person you gave that money to, that's why our program works the way it does. That's theirs. We've had vendors get $100 tips on occasion, and we hear about it. That's an amazing day for a vendor. That's their money to keep. That doesn't come back to us.
You just get 25 cents off that.
We get at the
off
top.
that article.
Yeah.
Okay. When I had a brainstorm, I was going to think of what it was. I got some other things. How do you get the article in the? No, I'll tell you this one. I
Okay.
bought an ad. It's going to come out
Yes.
in your paper, and it's for a thrift store.
Yeah.
And so I got smart and I said, if you bring the contributor in, don't have to leave it with us.
Right.
Just bring the contributor
Right.
in and show it to the clerk. You get some kind of discount.
Okay.
They worked it all out. I didn't figure all that out. So I think this is a good revenue source. I know it's a good revenue source for the people that you're trying to help. What I like about it, and I won't get this said, what I like about it is you've brought a solution to homelessness that empowers homeless people. I've been to all kind of meetings where people want to do something for the homeless, and it just reeked with enabling and not fixing the problem. this fixes the problem because you give people an opportunity to work, and they can use their money for whatever they want to. I mean, it's their business. If they have a habit and nobody knows about it and they're funding that habit, that's just like everybody else in America. It's capitalism in its finest hour. Capitalism works. I really like what you do. People that want to write articles for your paper, you have some good articles.
Well, thank
My
you.
wife tells me she reads
Thank
it. She
you.
buys them. She reads that thing cover to cover, and she says there's some very good articles in there that she enjoys reading. What I don't read well, so I don't read them all the time. I read one or two. What? How do you contribute to your? Can anybody put an article in?
Absolutely. And so what we say about the paper is we're a publication that does focus on issues surrounding homelessness and poverty. And so, but we're pretty broad. We're pretty liberal with that. You know, something about gambling, obviously, you know, about homelessness or poverty, anything about addiction, voting rights, different things like that. It's all related. And
Now, how often do you reprint?
we print twice a month. We have 2 issues per month. And so if you want to get an article in the paper, we ask that if you have not experienced homelessness, like I have not, then I need to write something relevant to homelessness or poverty, and that can be pretty broad. But my content needs to be about homelessness or poverty. If you have experienced homelessness, however, all of that is relevant to your life. All of your experiences are relevant. So anything that someone who has experienced homelessness writes about, we can consider publishing. So yeah.
The thing, when I hear homelessness now, I was watching television, and you're going to know the story. I guess everybody in America knows it. This homeless gentleman somewhere, and he was talking to him. He had a golden voice.
That's right.
Yes. It made me jealous. That dude had a voice on him, brother. And he went back to work. I don't know whether he's still working or whether his addictions took him down. Do you know anything about his history?
I only know very little, and everybody forgive me if I'm wrong. My understanding was that he did still continue to struggle with his addictions when this attention came towards him. But that since then, I believe he's been able to have some recovery. And then there's a book called The Golden Voice that has been written about him.
Is that right?
Yeah. So my mom's given it to me, and so I know she's going to watch this, and so I have not read it yet, Mom.
That guy's. That made me jealous. Quick as he opened his mouth, he made me jealous.
Yeah.
I have a lot of homeless people that come to Inner City Church.
Yeah.
And they come and worship with us, and they're fine folk. I mean, you know, they really, and a lot of them come from the mission program down at the Rescue Mission, which does a very good job. And they'll come out and work with us, and now they've got jobs. They're very productive citizens, and what's beautiful about it, they come back and volunteer. And some of them volunteer, and they're sensitive about the areas of volunteer. In other words, if they've had a problem in the past, they don't think it'd be appropriate for them to be around youth. They're not offenders, but they just think it'd be best not to do that. They work with adults, so they work in those areas. And they've demonstrated a great ability to set their own boundaries.
Yeah.
And so they just really are blessed to me, and I just love them to death. I mean, you know, we'll have 5 or 6, we'll have anywhere from 6 to 8 people, homeless people, come every Sunday to the worship service.
Wonderful.
And some stay, some move on, you know, but we're there for them, and so they're really welcome to be there. So anybody can write, but they're going to have to write about some issue that's relevant to homelessness.
If they themselves have not experienced homelessness, right. So Andrew is our editor. So Andrew is the one, if you're interested in content, that's who you need to talk to.
Where is your office?
Our office is located inside the Downtown Presbyterian Church at 5th and Church in downtown Nashville. 5 years ago, the church opened their doors to us to be able to have some meetings. We've been able to expand and grow, and they've been an amazing place for our offices to be located.
Is that where the folks pick up their papers at?
Yes, it is. It is.
What about the name tag or the ID tag? Do y'all donate that to them, or is that something they have to purchase?
We give that to them, and they have different goals along the way that they can meet. So any of those shirts, aprons, things like that. Once they sell so many papers, we like to help them build their business and give them some more legitimacy. And so those T-shirts and things are also items we're able to give them along the way.
Where is the? I don't know where you know the answer to this. Now we ain't got 4 minutes. What am I supposed to ask you? I'm so excited about this thing because I think this is something. Homelessness is a problem. And I can't imagine what it would be like not have keys in my pocket.
Right.
You know, I can just think if I'm homeless and I have no, and when the weather starts getting cold, and we've got things like Room in the Inn, I'm going to a fundraiser for them, and you know, those are good programs. Anything that involves God's army to helping solve issues is a good thing. But this empowers the people to have resources to make the decisions, and I've seen them stand there and counting, running through the bills while I'm waiting for the light to change. And some of them pulling down some good bucks there, and so And it's good. That is inspiring me. That's encouraging.
A couple of things I do want to say about that money. When we started the paper, Tom used to say in his trainings, "You're not going to get off the streets by selling this paper." He has long since stopped saying that. We have a vendor force of 400 vendors right now.
400.
And we are finding when we survey our vendors, about a third of them have gotten secured housing since beginning to sell the paper. So that is something definitely that people are using that money for. So then we're so blessed. The other thing I just wanted to mention before we have to sign off is that our mission was only two things when we started the paper: to create a quality publication that was well worth $1 about homelessness and poverty, and then to use that publication to create a source of income for people who have experienced homelessness. The third part of the mission that revealed itself to us, this was not part of our mission, but the third part of our mission that revealed itself to us is that face-to-face interaction between someone who has experienced homelessness and someone who has not. It's changing lives on both sides of the economic divide. You asked me earlier before we started recording, what is the thing that I like the most now? That is the thing, hands down, that is the most inspiring to me. It wasn't until last year that someone pointed out to me, so you recreated all over Nashville your first experience with Don. And I had not realized it until then, but that handshake really has gone across the city, and I am humbled to just have been a part of those interactions.
My granddaughter, 10 years old, is not afraid of homeless people.
That's amazing.
She will talk to homeless people. She gets money, and I mean, you go through McDonald's, she's going to hustle you. They don't hustle me. She hustles me. She wants to go buy a contributor.
That's right.
And so it's changed the whole attitude toward from being standoffish. What it's done, it's done away with the panhandler. And the panhandler, and some panhandlers are just pushy.
That's right.
And they're rude. And you've done away with all that. And so I just commend you, and I'm proud to meet you. And we don't have about 45 seconds to go. I want you to come back.
Well, thank you.
They told me you could talk. I said,
I
find out if she can talk, because I don't even like it. You can talk. I want you to come back.
Well,
and I want you to bring the guy that interviews these guys. I want to meet him, too.
You want to meet Tom? Okay.
Tom, is that his name?
That's
I won't get him on here. But well, on behalf of the city of Nashville, in our homeless problem, I want to thank you for what you've done.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you, Nashville. We are the highest circulating street newspaper in North America because of Nashville.
I was going to ask that question. I forgot it.
Yeah.
So compared to other cities, you're doing better.
Almost twice over. We circulate about 120,000 per month. That's right.
That is great.
Thank you, Nashville. It's thanks to you.
Folks, there's a whole lot we can do to help people, but when you see somebody holding up a contributor, lose a buck, give it to them, help somebody, and learn something. And read the paper. You'll learn some things about homelessness that we can't take for granted. We need to know, because this is our city. We can fix our city. And Tasha, thank you for helping us fix our city. The name of the program is Hope for the Cities of Hopelessness, and this is hope. This is us working together as a community to solve the problems facing our community. And God bless you, and thank you. Shake hands with me here.
Troublesome times are here, feeling in touch with fear. Freedom we all hold dear, now is at stake. Humble your heart to God, save from the chastening rod. Seek the way pilgrims trod, Christians away. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. Many will meet their doom. Trumpets will sound, and all of the dead shall rise. Righteous men in the skies. I'm going where no one dies, heavenward bound. Well, troubles will soon be o'er, happy forevermore. When we meet on that shore, free from all care. Rising up in the skies, telling this world goodbye. Home and we will fly, glory to share.